Hello and welcome to today's webinar. We're glad you're here and looking forward to talking to you about improving your social media engagement. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, so I want to welcome everybody to today. Whoops, that's not the right file. One moment. All right, now we're ready to get started. Just want to share with you a couple of upcoming webinars that we have here. Hopefully, you can leverage the QR code to connect with those online. However, um, we can just get started here with these upcoming webinars, and we're going to go ahead and get started with improving your social media engagement. This is part of a series of monthly webinar Wednesdays that we do at Axia Public Relations, where we help you with news media, social media, and web media content. So first of all, welcome. We're glad you're here. If you would like, please take a moment, introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you're located and what you're hoping to accomplish today, or what's on your agenda for our time together. And while you're doing that, I just want to tell you that we're really here to help you get more money out of your public relations investment, whether you're investing in news media, social media, or web media content. We know that that's important to as a way to help you continue to do what you're doing and helping your company and invest more in those services, whether it's internal or external. And by the way, if you have any questions, you can ask them anytime throughout the presentation. Some of you have submitted questions in advance, which we really appreciate. That gives us an opportunity to prepare for those. But if you have any questions along the way, just feel free to ask. Okay, so I'm your presenter, Jason Mudd. I am with Axia Public Relations, a PR firm I started in 2022. I was named top PR leader in North America by the World Communication Forum. I'm a trusted advisor to some of America's most admired and fastest growing organizations. I'm also a professional public speaker, publisher, published author, podcaster, and entrepreneur. And Forbes magazine named us one of America's best PR agencies. Here's what you're going to learn today. You're going to learn how to craft content that connects, when and where to post for best results, tools and trends that amplify your message, and how engagement ties to measurable results. And please take a moment in the comments. Let me know if there's something else you were hoping that I might address or we might cover today, or just ask in the form of a question. We would be glad to answer that. This is your time to learn and grow. It's our time to give back and enhance the profession. So we're very happy to do that today. So why does engagement matter? And more specifically, why does social media engagement matter? So first of all, it's not about the size of your audience, it's about the depth of your connection. And I think that's really important. So you could have visibility to thousands or even millions of individual contacts or individuals on social media, but if they're not your target audience, if they're not going to buy from, support, or influence your cause, then it's probably not worthwhile, having them be part of your audience unless you just look for vanity metrics in their support. So, And thank you, Marcus, for your comment. You said you were looking forward to learning more about Axia and your practical strategies about leveraging the different forms of media as specific tools. We will definitely be doing that today. And thank you for joining, and thank you for posting your comment. So engagement is equals brand trust. So the algorithm of any social media platform loves interaction. The more interactive your posts are and your content is, the more likely they're going to organically include you in the feed of your followers. Years ago, we discovered that really in the first few minutes, right, the social media platform is making a decision of how popular is this post going to be? How much are we going to organically serve it up? And the numbers we saw were between 1 and 3% of your organic audience will see your post organically or naturally at first. And then based on how well it performs in the marketplace of your followers, will determine how many other people begin to see it organically. And so that's why viral posts or popular posts are often seen first in our feed, whereas others aren't seen at all, or seen much later, because social media is a two-way conversation. And about 80% of consumers say user generated content highly impacts their buying decisions. So, if you ever want a justification for a social media investment, certainly this is it right here. And I would capture this and share it with your leadership team and those that approve budgets. So, people engage when they feel something, when they feel or sense an emotional connection. And I think that's really important. Sometimes I think we undervalue or underappreciate that, but it's certainly obviously critical to the success of your program. And so emotions fuel actions. And sometimes I see, especially with large corporate organizations, I see where they don't put emotion into their communications, their corporate comms, or even their social media. And so emotion fuels action. Combined with that, with good timing and consistent posting, that's the formula for success on social media. So don't overlook emotion, right? What you want to do is appear to the heart and minds of all of your audience. And I think that's really important and something that is often underlooked. Common mistakes or common strategy mistakes with social media. First of all, relying on one person without support. So I could get on a soapbox about this. I've posted on LinkedIn about this, but you can't do social media well or right unless you're doing it with a team. And it's really simple to think about. Today's modern social media is not just text, right? Maybe early on when it was mostly text, you could get away with one person doing your social media. But we all can name off the top of our head 5 or more social media platforms. Each social media platform is unique and different than others. And with each unique platform, you need to be posting what's called native to the platform. Native to the platform means that you're posting content specifically to that format. So, would you post still videos to or still photos to YouTube? No, no, you wouldn't. Right? Would you post plain text to Instagram? No, you wouldn't. So, you really have to look at the format of the platform to make sure you're aligning your content there. And no one person is going to be a great writer that's very engaging. They're not going to be a video production specialist, a graphic designer, or art director. They're not going to be great at analytics. They're not going to be great at whatever else you might be looking for them to do on social media. So, social media really needs to be a team. And if you can't afford a team, then maybe you need to look at hiring an outside agency, or you need to look at how you can provide resources to your social media person so they can get some help. A lot of times, our social media team is just looking for opportunities to brainstorm. They feel like they've run out of content or ideas. And so it's really important that you just not rely on one person. And if you do, make sure they have some support. As I mentioned earlier, you don't want to just copy and paste the same post across all platforms. You want each platform's content to be a little bit unique. It may be unique in timing. It might be unique. It should also be unique in the formatting. Not all social media channels have the same exact dimensions for the images that you use. Sure, you can get away with using an image and across multiple platforms, but it's not always going to be a best practice or a best output. The other thing is you don't want to be chasing trends without a strategy, right? Lots of several organizations have a lot of activity but no strategy. So I would really focus on what's our value, vision, and voice, and how do we best leverage them on our social media platforms and our social media messaging. So spend some time coming up with a strategy. If you don't have a strategy, then you're just very busy. And I recognize that I've heard somebody say, "Oh, I don't have time to have a strategy, or I don't have time to plan. I'm too busy doing all the activities." Well, that's the problem. So take a moment, freeze, pause, maybe eliminate some of the busy work that you're doing and focus on what's really going to be meaningful and valuable to the organization. The other thing I see people doing is measuring vanity metrics. So, look, likes, comments, and shares don't really matter if it's not from the target audience that you're trying to reach to. My favorite thing to look at is click through rates, or what happened, once they saw the post. Did they take some sort of action? Otherwise, if you're just measuring likes, comments, and shares, and views, that's not really telling you much. It's not telling you how this impacted the business or how it helped the organization. If possible, I would use tracking URLs, UTMs, to kind of see what people did after they clicked and to have a better understanding of how your audience is engaging. The other mistake I just mentioned is ignoring the analytics we just talked about. So, social media without strategy is simply noise. And we all know that most companies who are unsuccessful, quote unquote, unsuccessful on social media, are just contributing noise. And so, my hope today is to help you create more engaging social media that's not just about vanity metrics. More common content mistakes we see is using generic stock photos. That's not recommended, although I do know that sometimes you just have to do that because you don't have the photography to use. But I would love to see you do a photography day within your organization, maybe even doing it once a quarter, at least once a year, I would recommend, and get real photos of real people in your organization doing real things that demonstrate your products and services in action. Stock photos are fine if that's all you've got, but you're going to get one, not as much engagement from humans, and two, the data is showing that the social media platforms are well aware of when you use stock photography, and they actually penalize the visibility of your post for using stock photography. So definitely use photos, but try to avoid stock photos. And like I said, just schedule a photo day or go around on a photo shoot. We talked earlier about making sure your social media team has support. Whether you bring in an outside professional photographer or you organize a photo day where you have about 5 people on your team going around taking photos of your various locations, different offices, different floors, different stores, whatever the case might be. But it's really important that you take the time to get real photography. The next thing is you talk about yourself instead of the audience. So much of failed PR, failed corporate communications, failed marketing is just selfish. It's selfish content. It's company focused, not audience focused. And it's shameless self promotion that is basically just being selfish. Instead, you should be giving away your smarts, giving away your tips, your insights, and helping the audience save time, have a better life, and or make more money. Whatever way you categorically can help them, that's where I would go. The other mistake I see is ignoring modern formats. Like, so many companies and organizations aren't posting reels, stories, or carousels. They're just posting good old fashioned traditional social media posts. But the data shows people are engaging more with real stories, carousels, and videos. So make sure you're prioritizing that type of content and you're mixing up your content. Even just one post could be split into multiple different formats to help you. Also, not having a clear brand voice, that feels like one of the first things we should talk about, is making sure your values, vision, and voice are well communicated. And then not designing for accessibility. Now, that could be as simple as being designed well for mobile and desktop, but also could be keeping in mind the accessibility needs of your entire audience base, and that not all people are on the same devices, not all people have the same ability to consume the same content. Um, and so I would look for real wins over polished. That's really important as well. Engagement mistakes that cost you, right? So, ignoring comments and DMs. We find that a lot of organizations are either overlooking that, or there's not clarity on who owns that responsibility, and then therefore no one owns it. But at the end of the day, if people are commenting and sending you messages through social media, I know we all see the spam that comes that way, but at the same time, this is your opportunity to really leverage your audience, leverage the communication, and have the opportunity to connect with them and form a connection and build engaged fans on social. And then oftentimes you're forgetting about employee advocacy. This is both recognizing your employees and talking about your organization as a great place to work, how you give back to the community, and how you have an economic impact in the communities that you're operating, but also, leveraging employees as brand ambassadors. Now you do need to work with your legal department when you do this, because you can't force your employees to be active on social media. You can't force your employees to like, share, comment, and engage with your social media posts, because the social media accounts are their personal accounts and they get to decide what they want to do with that. There's also overtime law and other regulations depending on your state and jurisdiction that you need to work with HR and legal to figure out. But the other thing is there's a compliance element of this too, where your employees must disclose when and if they have a financial or other consideration relationship with the organization that they're posting on, commenting on, etc. And it's honestly not just with employer to an employee relationships, but it could be also, hey, maybe you're sharing a post and you should disclose, when you share the post, you should disclose, my husband works for this company. My husband owns this company. My wife works at this company. My wife was the founder of this company, whatever it is you might say, or, my cousin owns the company. Or in my case, I might say, I'm sharing my client's post because I believe it will be helpful to you, or something like that. But there just needs to be an element of disclosure that you've got candidly a conflict of interest or some sort of relationship that is and there's an exchange of consideration. So for example, if you happen to be an influencer and you go to a gym and they offered you a free personal training session, and you go like this and take a picture of yourself on the equipment with your trainer, you have to disclose that, I want to get you just say, I want to give a shout out to at Acme functional fitness for giving me a free workout and a free training session. I had a great experience. And then you show your photo or whatever, but the disclosure is so important. The next step is not using user generated content. So if you've got users leaving reviews, users posting about their experience with you and things like that, that's right, Marcus, you definitely want to have integrity in all that you're doing. But if you're not using user generated content, you should be looking for ways to repurpose user generated content, promote that user generated content. And of course, you don't want to sound too stiff, right? You don't want to sound too corporate speak. Social media feels very casual. Lots of people are consuming it casually. And so you don't want to be off brand, but you also definitely don't want to be too stiff. And then taking too long to reply, right? This is social media. You're supposed to be responsive. You don't have to be in real time, but you do want to make sure there's a concerted effort to respond timely to communications. So before and after, right? You can put this in the comments, but which post do you think is going to get more engagement, right? A no text, no hook, no engagement photo, or this after photo, which by the way is probably using stock photography. But again, this is just an example. And so the one on the right is way more visually appealing. It seems more interesting. It's not just plain text, and it's got real people. There's some diversity in the photo, which is obviously important as well, because you don't know who your audience is, and they want to make sure they can see themselves in those visuals. So visual strategy definitely drives response. And if you're just posting without any visual, I would say think again. Try to find a visual, whether it's worst case stock photography, but much better case real photography of real people, real faces, real smiles, real interactions. That could be employees, that could be customers, that could be, if you needed to, hiring a model to do it. So I want to talk about content that sparks conversation. And so one thing you can do is ask thought-provoking questions, right? You can use polls or stories. I get a lot more engagement when I post a LinkedIn poll than when I just post on LinkedIn. Again, show faces, real people, people engaged, people having fun, people being at your location. Uh, we do a lot of work with family entertainment centers, and we have a family entertainment center we work with, and every photo they post, every photo they put on their website is of an empty facility, of an empty family entertainment center. There's no one there, there's no one having fun. And to me, that's a big whiff, right? You want to show real people engaged in your product or service or your location having a good experience. What's the cliche? A picture, a photo is worth 1,000 words. An empty photo is really worthless in many cases, unless you are an architecture or interior design firm and you're trying to show off those elements. But I would argue even then, having real people in your facility and in your space would be a better way to show off your portfolio. We already talked about resharing user generated content and customer comments. You want to respond consistently. Basically, you want to create conversation, not just content, because people engage with people, not brands. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see in marketing. Honestly, people are just posting corporate content about the company, and instead, they should be focused on making their core audience the subject of all their posts. Here's a pro tip. So try this instead. So instead of posting a tip, post a question. I'm going to just also say that posting a tip is probably better than what most people are doing too. So maybe posting a tip is a good place to get started, but I might post a question as well, or give a tip and then post a question about the tip. Like, is this something you would find helpful? Have you ever tried this before? Um, Instead of posting about a company win, share the journey behind the win, share the people that were involved in the win behind the scenes. Give them an opportunity to tell their story, profile or feature them. People love seeing other people in social media posts. Instead of promoting a product, highlight a customer success story. How have your customers used your products in unique ways? Um, how have they benefited, or what would how did they create an ROI from their investment in your product? Uh, Personally, for example, I just discovered a product that I bought for $8 on Amazon in 2018 is starting to fall apart. And I went to go see if I could order it again on Amazon. And that's when I saw I bought it in 2018. I've used this product every day uh, since at least 2021, if not since I originally bought it in 2018. And for $8, I got my money's worth, no doubt about it, right? Wouldn't that be a great story to tell? So if I had the gumption to contact that company and say, hey, this product I bought for $8 in 2018 doesn't work anymore, can I, get a warranty? Can I get a replacement or whatever? Number one, I might say to that customer, instead of saying, are you kidding me? It was $8 and it was like 8 years ago, bro. Instead, I might say, you know what? Absolutely. Can we use you as a testimonial? What was it? Marcus asked. It was a leash for my dog. So it's disconnected from the handle as of last week. And this morning, I finally remembered. Oh yeah, I need to go and try to get a replacement for it because I really like this particular dog leash. Um, let's see, and then I had another story in mind, but I forgot what it was now. But yeah, just ultimately highlighting a customer success story. So turn a lemon into lemonade is what I'm suggesting that you do here. And then talking about sharing a finished project, right? So instead of posting about sharing a finished project, show the work in progress and the lesson learned. Maybe you can record a fast motion video of your organization building the house, building the product, the process the product goes through. And then talk about maybe the lessons learned of how you got there, where you figured out that the temperature had to be a certain way in order for this product to stick or do the right thing. But again, people don't connect with perfection, they connect with personality. All right. So basically, what I want you to do is think about working smarter, not harder. Tools save time. Reposting winners saves effort. And what I mean by that, if you've got a great post that was, highly visible or high conversion or whatever metrics you're using, right? Don't be afraid to post about it again, because I guarantee you, not everybody saw it, not everybody remembered it, or they might be looking for it again. How many times we've tried to search for a post we saw but didn't really save it or make special note of it until later, and we wanted to go back to it. And then just be sure to ride relevant trends, but not every trend, right? You don't need to be doing every TikTok trend that's out there. You don't need to be repurposing every meme that you see. But when you can find something that really is relevant, funny, interesting, use it. Don't be afraid to jump on relevant trends. So, speaking of tools, timing trends and tools. So, timing, post when your audience is active. Use some of your analytics to try to figure that out. But I would say don't, perfectionism holds you back. So I wouldn't spend forever waiting for the right opportunity, because the right opportunity is now. The right opportunity is now, right? So don't wait for a perfect scenario. But if you have data, follow the data. If you don't have data, follow your instincts. And then trends, we talked about this already. Ride the wave of viral trends. Do so responsibly. Don't jump on the wrong topic and force yourself into something that you don't belong, because that's where a lot of mistakes will happen. And if you think something's funny, or whatever, make sure you've got a diverse group of people who are reviewing your content first to make sure you're not making your mistake or stepping into it. And then tools to try. These are just some of them. We don't have a relationship with any of these, but our preference of any of these either. But Buffer, Later, Canva, Sprout Social. We've used Hey Orca. We use different solutions for different clients. But try some tools to help you schedule your post, and try some tools to help monitor and do some social media listening as well. But consistency and relevancy equals engagement. And Marcus comment, thanks for the comments. Marcus, he said, yes, trending and moderation and be consistent. Yep. Yep. I agree. Implementation mistakes to avoid include inconsistent posting, not repurposing strong content, never testing new ideas. There was a time where we were doing regular ideation and brainstorming sessions just for our social media. And we still do them, but just not as frequently, because we found some things that really work for us. Also, you want to make sure you have a social media crisis plan. So your crisis communications team, if you don't have one already, that's something we can help you with. But you want to make sure social media has a seat at the table for the crisis communications committee or team. That group should be meeting on at least annual, I recommend at least quarterly basis, reviewing plans, doing some rehearsals and practice scenarios. And you should have content and templates already created for every format: text messaging, email, website, social, media relations, etc. Because it's going to be a lot easier to work from a prepared toolkit than it is to start shopping for and looking for and preparing tools at the last minute. Marcus asked, what does the crisis plan look like? Yeah, I can definitely give an example. We could probably also do a webinar on that exact topic. So thank you for that suggestion. But, corporate communications or corporate crisis plan, we've got 10 steps for that on our website. Happy to share that through our social media post. We can do that probably later today or tomorrow. But ultimately, we've got a 10-step for managing crisis. And, that's kind of an overarching umbrella topic, but certainly social media and having a crisis plan specifically for social is really important. The other mistake to avoid is not doing performance audits. And every post is a data point. Don't get too caught up in the micro data, but use the collection of multiple posts to have some macro data and figure out what works and doesn't work for your organization. So platform specific tips, right? So LinkedIn is a little more about industry insights and employee wins, right? It's the B2B kind of a business platform to have business conversations or post about business topics. But as we get more and more, personal in the workplace, people are sharing more personal posts on LinkedIn as well with their business colleagues. Instagram is kind of behind the scenes content and reels. We used to say it was all about lifestyle photography, but the platforms evolved to, become more competitive and more like TikTok. And speaking of TikTok, obviously, TikTok is all about videos and engagement, and it uses its algorithm really well to feed you content it thinks you would like. Facebook is, events and community content, as well as kind of exchanging photos with family. And then X, of course, is timely, voice led, short form thought leadership and commentary, especially on political and news. And then let's talk about going from engagement to outcomes, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're doing this for business, you're looking for outcomes more so than just simply engagement. But sometimes you need that engagement to get the outcomes you're looking for. So let's track clicks and conversations. Let's set up KPIs that might include shares, saves, DMs, etc. As I mentioned earlier, let's use UTMs and Google Analytics. Basically, use UTMs to link or to track the clicks that you get and where people go, and then review monthly what's working and then double down on that. But don't forget to keep trying new things and constantly keep it fresh. Engagement isn't the goal, it's the gateway. That's an interesting quote and something to consider. Uh, and then as we're going through all this, I know I'm sharing a lot of information with you, but let's think about some quick wins that you could try even this week, maybe even next week, right? So maybe you try to ask a question in your next post, reply to every comment within 24 hours or within the next business day. Share a behind the scenes moment, whether that's you and your social media team, whether that's somebody within your organization. Maybe you do a day in the life of someone uh, around your office or somebody in your organization. Maybe you let somebody do a takeover on social media. If you own a roofing company, maybe you put one of your roofers that's got a little bit of a personality behind the camera, or taking some photos. You definitely want to be posting a poll or a reel, and then highlight someone in your audience. Maybe you have a fan that's very active in your community. I think we all know the people who are, some of our top fans. Maybe you want to profile them or give a shout out to them in some way that will build more loyalty from them and attract more fans as well. Now, remember, start small, be consistent, and you'll see results, whether that's a diet, a workout program, going after promotion, or simply doing, your PR for your organization. At the end of the day, start where you are, do what you can. And over time, the consistency is what will pay off. So tell me, what's the one thing you'll try today? Let us know in the comments, or just make a note for yourself privately, whatever you would prefer. But let's figure out something that you could try between now and noon tomorrow. And feel free to drop me an email or comment on the social media post where you heard about this webinar, and let me know the one thing you're going to try. And then also let me know how that went. I'd be really curious to hear. Now, if you've got, if we're checking boxes here and you're doing all of these things already, good for you. That's fantastic. But I bet there's one thing here that you're not doing yet that you could start doing, or maybe one thing here you could spend more time on. We're big believers at Axia. Our fifth core value is improvement. We talk always about getting 1% better every day. So if you're doing everything here, what's something you could do a little bit different or better to get 1% better? All right, so next steps. Let's audit your current content. Let's take a look at what you're doing today. Does it align with your values, vision, and voice of the organization? If not, how can you pivot and improve? Identify 3 engagement tactics to try this week. We talked about some of those just a minute ago. Commit to regular posting and engagement rhythm. You can't just post whenever you feel like it. You really have to have a plan, a content calendar that you've worked out well ahead of time. Our rule of thumb is that 80% of your posts should be calendared and scheduled in advance, allowing you the freedom and autonomy to figure out what other 20% of content is happening in real time around your organization, or give you an opportunity to jump on a trend. And the one excuse I never want to hear is, well, I can't post about that today because we already have a post scheduled for today. Well, you either need to move that post to another day, or you need to forgive yourself and give yourself permission to be able to post more than once a day, especially when the opportunity strikes, because an opportunity does not always strike at the exact time or the perfect time. And sometimes you're just struggling to figure out what to post about next. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, I want you to track what works and double down on it. That eliminates guesses. Certainly take guesses, take risks, try new things. But when you know something works, don't ignore it. Figure out what made it work and try to replicate it. All right, so we have a 14-step process for social media, and I don't mind sharing it with you guys. I have no issue with that. I think it's important that we are here to be helpful. We're here to advance the profession and have you be more successful in your own social media. So feel free to screenshot this if you would like. But basically, we start with objectives and we do some research. We identify our concepts and our messaging. We draft our content calendar. We typically are doing a full month at least two weeks, if not a month in advance, allowing us to be to be improvise and do impromptu posts based on breaking news or something we weren't expecting to have happen, or a trend we want to jump on. Unique feature of our PR firm is we employ copy editors. Most PR firms do not do that. Most companies don't have a professional grammarian who's been trained and knows grammar inside out. Some people have people who are pretty good at proofreading, but proofreading and copy editing aren't the same thing. I would definitely recommend highly you do have a peer review that occurs after you draft and before the copy editing to make sure nothing is offensive to different audiences and groups, to make sure the humor translates, to make sure it's on message. That would be a peer review. And then the next step is to go into a grammar review with a copy editor. Marcus, yeah, thanks for screenshotting that. And then 7, of course, is that visual I talked about before. Try not to always use a visual if you can. Don't use a stock image, but if you need to do that, just do it. It's better than nothing. Go ahead and schedule your post ahead of time so you're not worried about what's going to post today and scrambling to put in a post each day. Already kind of have that figured out and planned so you can breathe a little bit and be working on the next month's content. And then let that scheduled post publish, and then we'll look for opportunities to engage with it and engage with your audience. Monitor and do social listening, and then promote as needed. And then obviously measure and report back to your senior leadership and other people, other stakeholders. I recommend reporting up on social media on a weekly basis of here's what we worked on this week, here's what we're doing next week, here are the things I need support from my management or other departments to be successful. The second thing I would do is report your progress towards your KPIs on a monthly basis. Then on a quarterly basis, I would report those KPIs up to your leadership team or your manager. And then I would also create an executive summary for the shareholders and board members and C-suite of your organization. You probably would provide that to your C-suite, and then they would elevate it to shareholders and investors and board members as needed. But I think they would really appreciate having more frequent reporting of what's going on in social media. One, that'll help you demonstrate the value you're bringing to the organization. And two, when you go to them and ask for more funding, a budget, and investment in social media for the new fiscal year or calendar year, they'll be much more warm to it, knowing that the good things are happening and seeing the activity that's occurring. You know, people don't like to guess, and if they have to guess, they usually guess the worst. All right, so our next webinar is going to be on July 9th. We're going to talk about search engine optimization. There's a lot of chatter right now about AI and how it's disrupting search optimization. But what we're finding is, you know, search optimization is becoming more and more the cousin of what's now being called answer engine optimization. And there's probably 2 or 3 other terms that people are using frequently about it. But certainly I'm finding that our hard work of search engine optimization for the past 20 years, I started doing search optimization in 1998 and started doing it for our company, our agency, when we first got started. And that's been paying dividends for us for many years. And we were one of the first PR firms to show up on answer engines because of our hard work and effort and our visibility, credibility, and endorsements and accolades we've received that have really helped us with our answer engine optimization. So I have a colleague who owns a PR firm, and she sent me a couple text messages say every time I do a search about PR, it's citing your company as an expert and a thought leader on the different topics that I'm using the generative AI tools for. So I say all that to say that search optimization is not dead, despite the headlines you might be seeing. It's just evolving into a different platform and more opportunity to fully leverage search optimization. In fact, our clients are seeing some of their best results yet from search engine optimization this calendar year. And I think it really is because of the proliferation of generative AI platforms. So let's talk. What are your questions and answers? Please put them in the chat if you have some. We've received some ahead of time, which we really appreciate. Some of them we were not able to incorporate yet into the presentation. But I do have notes over here to the side for the questions that were asked, basically in the last 24 hours. So how do I avoid sounding salesy while still promoting my brand? I would say we talked a lot about that indirectly during this conversation. So make it about your audience, show how you're helpful, give away helpful content, give away helpful tips, ask questions and engage your audience. And try to connect with them on an emotional level, like I talked about earlier. It's so important that you tell them, like, I know it can be frustrating when you, you need a nail and you can't find one, or you need you need somewhere to take your family out for entertainment that is affordable, but you don't want to take them to the wrong place on a Friday night or something like that. So use empathy, lead with empathy, and look for opportunities to build a strong brand and reputation, and ultimately a relationship um, with them. That's how you come across from being salesy. People don't like to be sold, but they do like to buy, and they do like it when they have a helpful expert giving them advice and guiding them, who's not pushy and not trying to be shamelessly self-promoting, or, as I mentioned earlier, selfish. So, how often should I post on each platform? This is a common question that we get. There's really no secret formula, but Hootsuite said, this baseline here. But I would argue you should aim for consistency, not frequency, and of course, always focus on quality over quantity. I think a lot of companies and organizations make a big mistake of, we must post every day, we must post X number of times a week, and things like that, and they're really kind of missing out on the opportunity to focus on quality, because that's ultimately what you want. Just ask yourself, do you want more quantity of phone calls or text messages, or do you want more quality of them? Do you want to see more quantity on your social media feed, or do you want more quality? Do you want the content you see to match your interests, which is why TikTok is so popular, or are you just looking at quantity like Facebook or Twitter? So here's what Hootsuite recommends. You can read it for yourself, but ultimately, saying LinkedIn 2 to 3 times per week, um, and then Instagram obviously 3 to 5 times per week, Facebook 3 to 4, uh, Twitter daily if you can, and I've seen people use it really well hourly. So X gives you a lot more variety and amount of frequency that you post. The next question is, and thank you for these questions, guys. How quickly should I handle negative comments or criticism on social media? While I'm answering that, feel free to ask your questions in the chat. Be happy to get to those. Acknowledge, don't delete unless abusive. I've seen clients just go in and just start deleting it when people are leaving negative content or comments. But, I think it just lends more credibility when you are willing to be transparent with your audience. And then respond professionally, take it offline if needed, and show you're listening. Handling it well builds uh, public and individual trust. So, you can turn lemons into lemonade, like I mentioned earlier. You can actually take an unhappy customer and turn them into a client or customer for life if you handle it well and handle it right. So we do have more questions, but real quick, I just want to thank you for joining us. And ultimately, I trust you found this webinar helpful. What we're offering is a free strategy session to discuss building your organization's social media presence and engagement. You can click that QR code to do that. And now we're going to move on to our next question, but I'll give you just a moment to snap that QR code if you're interested in a free strategy session with us. All right, so let's talk more questions and answers. And while I'm waiting on anybody to post more questions, and we'll get to questions we've got that we received in the last 24 hours. But again, here's our upcoming webinars. The next question I've got here is what types of posts tend to get the most engagement right now? I would say people respond to authentic, behind the scenes content, helpful tips, polls, and storytelling. And I think I can't underemphasize storytelling, or I can't I'm you've got to emphasize storytelling. You want posts that invite a conversation, like questions or maybe hot takes. Typically, those outperform plain announcements or company posts. My one thing about hot takes, if you're going to call it a hot take, it should be a hot take. Not everything's going to be a hot take. I see a lot of organizations messing that up, or individuals saying, I got a hot take on something. And to me, it's kind of more of a stale take or something that everybody already knows. Um, Got another question here is what's a good mix between promotional and non-promotional content? I mentioned we follow the 80-20 rule about the scheduling of posts. So we schedule 80% of our posts. We have 20% of our posts um, be spontaneous. And we like to follow the 80-20 rule here as well between promotional and non-promotional content. I think we learned this like a decade ago or so from HubSpot that 80% um, of your content should be engaging and educational, where 20% of it can be promotional or maybe even selling, like trying to convert people to a landing page or offering a special offer, a special deal. But, think about your audience and what would they like and what would they find helpful. Think about your own personal experiences. Do you like being sold to, or are you looking for ways that you can be more helpful or be helped? And so, if you're helping your audience, that's the good way to be. If this is helpful content, then I would do that at least 80% of the time. But if this feels marketing or icky or salesy, like the other person asked, I would stay away from that as much as possible and certainly no more than 20% of the time. And you might get pushback from leadership or from management thinking that why are we not posting about our products and services and how people can buy them? It's just a matter of educating them. And if you do the reporting and and become a trusted advisor to your clients or your employer, they will like, know, and trust you and appreciate you and take your advice. So, how can I use storytelling effectively on social media? Well, that's the $1 million question right there. Um, Again, as we talked about earlier, share real customer experiences, employee moments, or origin stories. Make sure your story follows a story arc, where you have a clear beginning, a middle, and an end, just like we learned in, grade school. Um, Even if it's in a short caption, but you want to draw your attention or your audience in emotionally. Some people are very emotionally driven, some people are very logically driven. I always err on making sure we're appealing to both the heart and the mind of our audience. Let's see. Next question here is how do I make my audience feel part of a community, not just a follower? So that's a great question. Hard to do when you don't have a community. But once you start building a community, use their names when responding. Again, social media is a two-way conversation. And Let's see. Oh, and you want to maybe repost their content or that user generated content. You want to ask for their opinions. You want to thank them for, sharing. You want to have some fun with them and be encouraging to them. Um, you want to get, maybe give them a behind the scenes look. Community starts with inclusion. And so, thinking of ways that you can include more people from your audience and make them feel welcome and special is probably a really good way to go about doing that. And let's see. This next question, should I tag people or organizations in post? I would say yes, absolutely. But also make sure it's relevant, right? You don't want to be spammy. You don't want to tag all and things like that. You want to make sure you're tagging the relevant individuals or connections to it. That'll increase visibility and may prompt engagement or reshare from those that are tagged, which is obviously important. That's one of the struggle with a lot of the tools that are out there is that some of them don't make it as easy to tag as you want when you're scheduling. So you have to kind of manually do that. Also, be very careful because if you edit your post to go in and tag people too soon, I'm I have my concerns or disagreements with this, but if you edit a post within the first 3 hours, some platforms will penalize that post because you made edits to it. So that's all the more reason to have a peer review and have a group review post before you schedule them and before you post them. And also be thinking about have I thought of everything like hashtags and tagging others in our content. How can I tell if a trend is worth jumping on? That's a good question. So ask yourself, does this trend align with our brand? Can we add something of value or original to this trend or conversation? Don't force it if it just doesn't seem to work. It's probably not worth the time, energy, effort, and maybe even the risk, because relevance is more important than recency. And again, if there is a trend, you got to move fast. Years ago, we had a young woman on our social media team, and we would spot a trend and we would tell her to post about it. And then, like, several days would go by, and she didn't post about it yet, and we would say, well, why haven't you posted about it yet? She said, well, there hasn't been an opening in our content calendar for it, but it's going live next week. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, if there's a trend, we want to jump on it before other people are even on it, because the best thing you can do is be the one or be the first in people's minds who is on a trend earlier. And then every time they see that trend, they think of you and your brand along the way as if you were the original, or at least the original in their mind. So yeah, Marcus, and don't be afraid of emojis, right? Some posts that's relevant to, some brands that's relevant to, and other posts and brands it's not. But I like emojis, and I'm almost 50, so and I use them regularly. But part of that is just to stay engaged with my younger audience and contacts. Let's see. Is it okay to reuse or repurpose older content that performed well? Absolutely. In fact, we covered that quite a bit. Definitely, and update it with new data or visuals. Not everyone saw it the first time. Evergreen content deserves a second life. And I would just say yes, for sure. Reuse it, freshen up the graphics, maybe freshen up the factoids, give it a different look or appearance. But if it really worked well, then just repurpose it. Again, I don't even see all of my social media content, much less those of my company. So if you aren't consuming 100% of your content, and you work for the company, or you're an investor in the company, you own the company, or it's your client, right? Then you can guarantee the rest of the world hasn't been a student of it either. And look, if it was a great post, they probably want to see it again because they might have missed it or wondered who posted it or been looking for it. I think we've all done that before, tried to find a post that we liked again somewhere else. Okay, and then next question: what is the role of video and social media engagement today? I don't think we can underestimate it. It's huge. Short form video, reels, TikTok, LinkedIn clips get more reach and retention. Don't overthink. Just don't overthink it. Authenticity wins over polish. People do not love perfection, but they do love something relatable that they can connect to. And short form videos, people have short attention spans, and um, giving them something they can consume that's in a video format that's quick, clever, interesting, funny, fun, and fast are the way to go. What kind of content performs best on LinkedIn versus Instagram? Well, I mean, they're very much two different platforms, but then again, my Instagram feed is often looking like a business feed because of the people I follow on there are business people and brands that I do business with. So LinkedIn is generally thought leadership, case studies, behind the scenes of work culture. Those would be great posts for LinkedIn. And then visual storytelling on Instagram, like I mentioned earlier, is really important. Obviously, reels are hot, testimonials, before and after, and lifestyle content. So, uh, Lewis, thank you. You said, is it better let's see, is it better to start doing long form video or short videos when starting off a new channel? That's a great question. I would start out with short, but I would simultaneously do long. So we're going to talk about blogging next month, but to me, actually the month after that, I guess. But to me, I like to say blogging sounds really boring, but when you look at the data, it's not boring at all. It's actually pretty sexy because blogging does so much for your brand and search engine traffic. The reason I'm pivoting here and talking about blogging for just a second is because um, long form blog posts perform really well for search engines and for getting people onto the site that want to know a lot of details. But shorter blog posts are actually, one, easier to produce, easier to consume. And so I would say look to have, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 5 be long form. And I would try to do a lot of short form videos for sure. And I think that has to do with people's appetites. Now you could take a long form video and then break it up into smaller pebbles or smaller pieces, and that'll make your job a lot easier. So one thing we do, for example, is when we record an episode of our podcast called On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, we take the 20 to 40-minute episode and we break it into 4 to 10 reels from each one, just kind of teasing that episode and showing some of the key moments. And those are very popular, and we get click-through rates where people then go and watch the entire episode. So they're good teasers. Thank you for the question. Is it worth maintaining a presence on X right now? I ask myself that question on a regular basis. I think it depends on your audience. If you find your audience is there, then absolutely. Otherwise, I would focus on and follow where your target audience is, whether that's buyers, donors, supporters, clients, customers. Um, you know, I would just really kind of test and tweak that. I think personally, I think Twitter, now X, has been on the decline well before Elon Musk bought it. I think at some point in the election cycle, people just got tired of all the politics and things like that were going on there. And it just became an unfriendly place to be for many, and they left. I'm not going to get involved in the politics of that, nor the politics of how Elon Musk has owned and operated. Because at the end of the day, some people love it and some people don't, and that's the best thing about it is it's a free market. I believe in free market and the ability for people to choose what they like, and for people to own a platform like X or Twitter and do with it what they want because they own it. But I will tell you, for PR pros, X is still very strong for media relations. There's still a lot of media on there. Some media have moved to Threads. I really haven't done much on Threads personally or on behalf of clients that I know of. But Threads is certainly there, and I get mixed reviews on if people find it helpful or not. But please keep the questions coming if you have them. We've got a few more here that we received before we went live today. Do hashtags still work, and how many should I use? The answer is yes, especially on Instagram, and maybe on LinkedIn. I'm a little torn right now on LinkedIn. I don't know that hashtags are that important right now. Are Instagram Reels and TikToks worth the effort for B2B brands? Of course, absolutely, 100%. Behind every B2B transaction is a B2C relationship. Every B2B buyer is a consumer in the marketplace. If you can get in their personal social media feed, I would highly recommend it. Short videos showing people, process, or quick tips perform well. Next question? What's one thing I can do this week to improve engagement? We talked about that earlier, but I would ask a genuine question in your next post and commit to replying to every comment. Bonus, post a behind the scenes photo or customer story with a relatable caption. We have hit our time together today. So we'll be wrapping up here in just a second, unless there's any final questions. But as I do that, reminder of our coming webinars. Go to axiapr.com/webinars to watch these in the future, as well as on demand later. Sign up. You'll get a notification when the on demand is available. Also, we have like 12 other webinars available to you there as well. And there is one, Marcus, on crisis already there. So check that one out. In the meantime, we have a special offer for our audience today. We've got the Essential Social Media Guide on our website. If you go to, you can use this QR code or go to axiapr.com/ebooks. But if you use the promo code SOCIAL, I'm going to give you a free copy of our Essential Social Media Management Guide. It's also available on Amazon, but I'd like to give it to you for free here today for your participation in our webinar. So check that out, axiapr.com/ebooks. That promo code won't runs out supplies while supplies last, kind of thing. And then look, we did this episode that was really popular on our podcast called On Top of PR. Our podcast called On Top of PR with Jason Mudd. But I did 20 reasons why your social media sucks and how to fix it. And honestly, I was tempted just to go through those 20 things for this webinar today. I think that would have been super helpful to you. But we've already got it available on our podcast, and our podcast does produce as a video and audio version. So check it out on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. You can also just use this QR code here, go right to it, and watch it on your desktop computer. But the feedback on this has been one of our most popular episodes ever. It just aired earlier this year. I'm really proud of it, and I think a lot of people like it. If you're thinking about, working with a PR firm to improve your social media or something else, here's kind of our three buckets of services that we offer. Uh, Categorized as news media, social media, and web media content. Be happy to talk to you and help you with this. We also offered you earlier a free kind of strategy session with our team. And due to vacations, those are booking up quickly because we'll have some vacations coming up on later this month. So if you're interested in sign up now, otherwise, maybe you can catch us after a little break that we're taking. With that, we've received, I think, 20 something questions. We're so grateful for the engagement. Thank you for the opportunity to connect today. If there's ever anything I can do to be helpful to you, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you for participating. And if you found this webinar valuable, please take a moment to share it on social media and tag a friend or colleague you think would benefit from it. You can do that at axiapr.com/webinars. Thank you so much. Be well, and I hope something great happens to you today.